Hey everyone, welcome to this tutorial for the Signalia radio system, your guide to mastering the simple radio and the complex radio for channels and audio. This system is very underdocumented, and I'm sorry for that, but I'm going to jump into it in this video, and I'm trying to give you just the core concepts so that you can immediately jump into using these. I've used these in the game systems that are included in the Signalia framework, and a lot of these are sort of like an ecosystem that support each other, and they're all built through the same radio system. Now, this radio system is broken into two parts, which is the simple radio and the complex radio. The simple radio is probably the most common you'll probably want to use, and the complex radio is something a bit more advanced if you want to organize and have things a certain way. So, without getting your wires jumbled, I'm going to jump into the simple radio right away. So, what is the simple radio? Basically, it's an event broadcasting system that decouples your game logic using string-based events. There are no channels, there's nothing that you have to really look at in the background. All you need to do is you create a listener, you give it a key that it's going to be listening to, and what it will do if this event or if this key is sent from somewhere else. Now, this somewhere else can be wherever in your project. It can be a game object in a different scene. It can be a game object on a completely different prefab. You don't need to actually reference these together. And because of this decoupling, even if there is no listener for the sender, you're not really going to encounter any issues. If the listener exists, then they will listen. If they're not, then nothing's going to happen. And this allows you to make multiple listeners for the same string, which will really help if you're trying to send like a, say for example, in an inventory system, an update event for every item slot. You want them all to listen to the same event regardless of where they are. Maybe it's an inventory in the merchant menu. Maybe it's an inventory for some chest item. Whatever it may be. So that's basically how you would use this. And every key is not really unique, which means you can have two listeners using the same string or the same key. So let's just quickly jump into the code and show you what I'm going to have here. So I have in my scene, this is a completely empty scene. I haven't even saved it. It's just an untitled scene. And it has one object where there's a listener. It's a testing listener. I'm going to open this script over here. And right away, I'm just going to jump in. And I'm going to go into the namespace, and I'm going to add in using ahako.signalia.framework. That's the only thing you need up here. And then what you need to do after is, on the awake method, you want to basically create the listener. Now, the way it works is you go ahead and say sigs.listener, and then you just open the parentheses and then you put the name of the event, and then you say something like trigger event, and then you put a comma in here, and then you say what will happen on this other side. This is the action parameter. So this action can be either a method that you have in here, so it can be something like this. It can be something like this, like a debug. Let me just actually write one. There we go. So something like this, and all I have to do over here for the listener is just add the name of the method, and we're done. And I've just created the listener, which will listen for this key, and if this key is received, it will trigger this over here. So I'm actually going to go ahead and try that. So I'm going to save this, and I'm going to jump back into the scene. Well, actually, I need to use the correct namespace for the debug. Yeah, there we go. Okay, and now what we're going to do is we're going to create another object, and we're going to call it test sender. Now, I don't really need to create a script for sending. You can actually just use game event sender. This script right here works. You can actually use this for sending directly without needing to send it through the code, in case you want to send a simple event that doesn't contain any parameters. And since our listener is not really using any parameters, we can just use this. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to add in, first I'll start the scene, just jump into the game. Now, immediately, you'll see like the Signalia Watchman appear. And Signalia Watchman will immediately appear in your scene if you use any part of the Signalia system, because the Watchman basically watches over the sticky values in the project. So what I'm going to do here from the sender side is I'm going to put the event that I want to actually listen to, which was the trigger event. I'm going to drop it in here, and we're going to just hit this. And as you can see, if we go to the console, we get our trigger. Now you see two logs in here. One is from the actual sender, which says sent event, and the actual event. So the event, as you can see, it was triggered in the testing listener, and we can immediately go to where it was triggered. So now that we know this, we have a listener that can listen to a event key and do something. Now, this is the simplest form for the listener and sender ecosystem. Now let's go a step further. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to try making a parameter listener that is not only going to just write a debug, but it's also going to supplement a value with that debug. So let's actually try that. So I'm going to jump over to VS Studio for this because it's much easier to work with for the namespacing, honestly. I'm just more familiar with it, so excuse the shift. So I'm going to use this same listener script, and what I'm going to do is, right below it, I'll make another one, takes the listener, trigger event. Now keep in mind, see, I'm listening to the same event, but here I'm going to actually use a parameter with it, okay? So I'm just going to add in, I'm going to open this, which is a method body, and I'm going to put something like S, for example. S would be the name of the parameter list, which is going to be sent when I trigger this. And you're gonna see this as I go on. So I'm gonna go here and I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna open a use lambda operation, and I'm gonna open curly brackets, and I'm gonna define the variable that I'm sending. As you can see, immediately it's auto completing this for me, but it's not really like this. It's more like a list, because it's an array. Sorry, it's an array of parameters, and I know that the first array is gonna be a string. Now I know this from the other side, because I know that I'm gonna be sending this event with this parameter. So I know that this should cast as a string. And then I'm gonna say, as you can see, like for example, debug log event trigger with parameter string. And there we go. Now we have a parameter listener. Now I'm gonna go ahead and make a different script so I can actually send this with a parameter, because unfortunately the sender script that you can use through here doesn't actually support sending with parameter. So we're gonna have to create a custom script for this. So actually I'm gonna go ahead into like a different object. Let's make another one. And I'm gonna go ahead, create a script. I'm gonna call it testing sender. There we go. And for the sending, all I have to do is really straightforward. Let's say I want to send it on, let's say on enable, because I want to actually control this. Or actually, you know what? Never mind. I'm gonna actually send this on a public method, send event, and all I have to do is just say sigs dot. And as you can see, immediately it adds the namespace. You need to remember to add the namespace. Sig send, and the trigger that we want. And as you can see, immediately, like it autofills through context what I'm actually trying to do. So I'm trying to send Now, don't let this auto completion throw you off. All I'm doing here is I'm sending the event I'm listening to, and I'm adding right after the comma here. I'm adding the argument, which is hello from testing center. Now, since it's a list or a param list, all I have to do is add another comma, another comma, another comma, and I can send as many parameters as I want. I can send a custom object, I can send this game object itself, I can send whatever, and it just matters how I unpack this on the other side. So I can actually send all of these and it will still work because I'm not really using the other ones, I'm just using the first element in this array. So this will still work, but I don't want to send all of these. I just want to send the string. So now I'm just going to go ahead and link this to a button on the UI. So I'm going to add a button. I'm going to create a UI button, Text Mesh Pro. That's fine. That works. I'm just going to enlarge it a little bit. Enlarge the text. Send. And we're going to put this button somewhere here at the bottom. And we're going to put the script on it. So over here, let's just drag it over. Or just keep it, actually, never mind, keep it. I'll just drag the script right here. And all I have to do is testing sender send event. Now when I hit this, what's gonna happen is it's gonna trigger the listener that we created in the other script, and it's gonna do event trigger with parameter, and it's gonna say hello from testing sender. Now that's what should happen. So let's try it. And if we hit this, as you can see, we get the event trigger. This is the first event because remember we have two listeners at the moment. We have a listener that's gonna trigger this and another listener that's gonna trigger but also unpack a parameter. So as you can see, we have those two. And that's perfect. That all works. We have the simple one and we have event trigger with parameter hello from testing sender. Now let's take it up a notch. And from the sender, I'm going to pack in the game object. Okay? And I want to write the name of the game object, which is test sender with param, or whatever game object it is, really. So I'm going to unpack it from here. Var game object. And there we go. And then we can just modify this log. Received message, string from game object name. And this should trigger with the name of the game object that we have. So let's look at that really quick. And if we send, as you can see, hello from test sender from test sender with param. And there we go. That's how, that's the core of how the listener sender system works. Now, I don't want to delve more into the complexities that you can play around with this system, but you can immediately imagine how you would use this or apply this in your own framework. So just to give you a few examples, I'm gonna go in here and I'm just gonna write, I'm gonna erase all of this and I'm just gonna write just to show you an example of how you would use this. So for example, say that you have a lot of scripts in the game, a lot of scripts that depend on the game to start first before they do anything. Like you want all the scripts or like all the systems that you have in your game to initialize when game starter, for example, has finished initializing. You would go to every script and you would put a listener for maybe game started. And if they get this event, you want them to initialize, for example. I'm just writing some mock-up code here just so you can imagine it. And it could work like this. So you can imagine, for example, this. Let's say this is your inventory system, and it depends on the game manager. And you want, after the game manager is finished initializing, to initialize this as well. And you can just send this, and every listener to this event is gonna initialize the system. That works. Same other thing, another example. Say you have a UI element that updates the player score. You would write something like player score, and you would say here maybe player score UI maybe, and then player score, and you know that maybe you're packing in the player score into as a parameter, and then you would do this Same thing that we did before. You will get the score and immediately cast it. Make sure not to do it this way, but because it's a list, or sorry, it's an array, so you need to unpack it first. And then you would do whatever. Like you have maybe a text mesh pro component. So like a TMP text, there we go. And you can just put your score right here. Wait, give me a second. Score text, text. And you would just put the score, something like that. And it will work. That's the same thing. And it even works this way. You don't have to write it. If you don't like writing it this way, you can write it this way. So for example, render UI. You can put in the score. So int score. And then all you have to do is, as you would expect, you just go into here. And then you just erase all this. Do the lambda operation again. Render UI. And then just s0 int as int, or from the other way. Actually, it only works at this way in this instance. Yeah. And there you go. And you've got yourself a cleaner system, a cleaner code that updates score without really needing to connect or force dependence on a lot of other scripts. That's basically it. So that's the simplest way I can dive into the simple radio and all of its kind of utilities. Now, say you have a listener, but you want it to only trigger once and then kill itself. Okay? Not to sound too morbid, but say you want to do that. You have something and you want it to initialize or like call only once. Perfect example is the game started, for example. Usually you want to initialize once, and game started would it only send once probably. But you want to actually confirm that it only sends once. Now you would go ahead and say, well, I mean, all I could do is I could just say private bool is initialized, and I could do just a simple initialize gate over here, and we're done. And you wouldn't be wrong. That's fine. You could do that. But what if I told you there's a better way to do this? Just keep everything as it is. And then just at the very end here, after you put the actual method body, add another comma. And then as you can see here, you've got a parameter that says one shot. If you set true, now this is false by default. But if you set true, this means this listener is a one-shot listener, which means it will only invoke once and then it will dispose itself. So this will make sure that you will only trigger this only one time. This is pretty useful for a lot of cases. And you can also do it a different way if you prefer to control it in a way. So let me show you what that is. You can dispose this listener when you feel like you want to dispose of it. So say you want to keep listening to it, but you want to dispose of it after some time or like later. Then all you have to do, define at the very top, private listener. You'll have to import the radio namespace and then say listener and listener. You can name it whatever you want. And then right here, just on the left hand, just put listener equals, and there we go. Because this is a function that returns the listener itself, you'll be able to store this listener. And wherever you want to dispose it, all you need to do is, let's say you finished initializing and you want to dispose of it after some code, right? Right? Then all you need to do is just say listener, better to put a null check, and then say dot dispose, and there you go. This will dispose the code. It will work the same way as making it one shot, but this is more manual work if you want to place it in a specific position. And that's basically how you control the life cycle of a listener. Now you must be wondering another thing. How do I track all of these? Say I have like 1,000 listeners in my scene. How do I track their existence in the game? After some time, you'd think you'll have so many listeners, it's going to become very difficult for you to track all of them. So what do we do in that case? And I got you covered with that. All you need to do, I'm gonna go over here. I'm gonna jump to a scene that actually has a lot of listeners happening. So let's jump over to one of them. I'm gonna say maybe let's try the save system example. Now this save system example has a lot of listeners working in the background for, saving operations and whatever. So to debug the listeners here, all I need to do is start the game and then go in here. As you can see, we got this. It's a simple scene just to test the saving operation. And all of these are connected with events, by the way. So if I press this, it's all a lot of listeners. There's a lot of listeners and senders that are causing this. So the buttons are here, are sending to this bar to fill up with arguments and all that. And I want to know in my game, where have I defined them? Or are they originating from? Because maybe I want to do some debugging and I want to get rid of some event that's causing a problem. All I have to do is go to Tools, Signalia, and then go to System Vitals. And then here is where you can debug all of this. You'll get basically a whole overview over the entire system. And then you'll see, for example, here you've got your tracked listeners, you've got the parameter events and the simple events, and you've got also complex radio if you're using that, resource assets, all of that. So let's look at radio control. That's where we want to go. So radio control, and as you can see here, this is all of your events. And if you drag this down, you can generate like a system report, you can analyze all the listeners, all that, however you want to use this. But let's say I want to know, I've got the loading complete event. Maybe this one. I want to know where it is. So I can, for example, hit inspect and it will show me like where this is. It will show me its ID. It will show me what method it's going to be calling. It's going to, it's going to show me the event name, and then it's going to show me the method body, the callback, and it's going to show me the target, where it is, and the type of it. And it will log this here down in the console. And if you go into the maybe highlight button, it will try to highlight it for you, but sometimes it won't be able to. And it will tell you why. Now I know why this is not highlighting. It's because it's a don't destroy on load object and it's disabled. It's right here. It's hard to find. Easiest thing you could do is you can copy the target name and just search for it, and you can find it that way. And you can dispose of it. By the way, you can dispose of this listener if you don't want it, and you can also send it to see what it was doing. And some events, like say this one for example, I can hit highlight, and it will show me where some of these are. So like this, it highlights it. It's originating from this script. So the event for save action is originating from this. So if I go here, I'll find a saving example. If I open this and then edit, I'll find actually, the listeners are all here. Save action, add health, add mana. As you can see, they're all originating from this place. So I can use this to know. Now let's try this window right away. I'm gonna, for example, dispose of some of these. You have this, like the mana. I wanna kill the mana listener. So we have add mana, which I think works on the increase button, and the remove mana. Let's dispose the add mana button. Click here, dispose, and we're done. As you can see, it doesn't respond anymore. It's not really doing anything because the listener has been disposed. But decrease is still working. We can remove mana again. And there we go. Now I can't remove. So I disposed of the listener. So you can have all of this control here to try and know what's happening. And you can even search for this if you want. So you have add, maybe remove. You want to know what kind of events are in your scene. And you can even create an event. You can even create a listener that's gonna simply log a message. This is mostly like if you want to check if listeners are working. If maybe you want to check not a listener, sorry, but you want to know that a sender is working. You want to know that something is being sent, and you want to know, is this actually being sent? You can put the name here and create a listener for that, and it will send it. And that's it. So that's the radio system in its entirety, the simple radio. And as for the complex radio, I'm going to leave that for another video because that is its own kind of bag of worms. So for now, let's just stop here, and please leave a question down in the comments or in the Discord, and I'll be happy to respond with whatever queries you have about all of this. And yeah, good luck developing. Thank you.